Hello, welcome back to meetrabbits.org. Thanks for being here. Today I thought we would take a walk outside the rabbit room, get a little bit of a change of pace, a little bit of a change of view, and see some of the other things and interests and projects that we have going on here a little bit. Things that I would assume that probably a lot of other like-minded people may be into. And also, I think along the way we'll see some of the places where, the rabbits kind of wrap in to the rest of what's going on here on our little homestead. So come on, we'll take a walk outside. It's a beautiful day and we'll just chat. So my rabbit room is in an attached barn that is attached to the house, which is really nice. In the winter time, you can see that we're pretty well shaded, good air ventilation, which is really great for the summer because we are coming into the time of year when we need to start thinking about heat sterility, temperature stress, things like that. So, we just come out to the backyard here, and I'm actually going to start off back here. This is our elderberry field, and I've kind of mentioned this in quite a few videos, and I thought that maybe I'd give you an actual look at it. Now, we do have some spotty growth in some places that we need to fill in. We actually are growing these in a former cow pasture. So when we had a milk cow here, this is where they were pastured. And the reason they were pastured here is because it's very rocky. There's a lot of rock in here. We've got great soil, but it's great soil between the rocks. This year we added a bluebird house, and we do actually have bluebird eggs in there. Maybe we can get a little peek. Trying not to disturb them too much, but don't know if we can get a view in there. Sorry, my camera work is just not great here. Actually, oh, there we go. There's our eggs. I have a still picture that shows it a little better. I think the focus and framing on these is a little different, like distance-wise, so it was a little harder to do. But at last count, there were 5 in there, which is great. In our area, the eastern bluebird has been pushed out by, I think it's the swallows, maybe the sparrows. They compete for cavity nests, so this is really great. So I like to have the bluebirds around. I've found that they've actually been a tremendous control for me against Japanese beetles, which I do get a lot of in the elderberries, get a lot of them in the garden, and them and other birds. By inviting them in and not being crazy with pesticides and herbicides, I've found that they have become a nice natural balance and control. Not to say I don't have any, but they're pretty well under control here. So yeah, when I talk about in the videos the elderberries, these are the elderberries, and this is one of the spots where you can see we do have some grasses and weeds. I don't go too crazy on those. As long as I keep the biggest, most invasive and kind of meanest weeds down, then we do pretty well. We've put down some wood chip, and this is a place where I put the rabbit, the manure and the castings from the rabbit room. They come on here all year long. So even in the winter, I come down and I'm mulching with those, and that gives me great compost and some pretty good weed control too. Like I said, because these are a bigger bush, I don't go too nuts. Have considered plastic, used it in the beginning, and then I stopped for a couple reasons. One reason was that trying to get away from the plastic, but the other reason is because of the way elderberries grow. So they will travel under and send up shoots. They're actually pretty shallowly rooted. But if you can get them into some of these kind of marginal spaces, they can do pretty well, as long as you can get water to them. Key with elderberries is water, 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 water. So that's that. That's just, a little something thought I'd mention we'd take a look at. And now we can take a little bit of a walk down to the garden. Here are some other elderberries. I've been playing with a lot of varieties. These two here are Scotia. This is a new variety that I just put in last year. I've got a good barn over there. These are all supposed to be good for the Northeast where I am. And this beautiful bush This is, I don't know, this is Mother Nature at its best, but this is the funniest thing about this bush is that this is actually where the chicken coop used to be. And this was a seed that one of the chickens probably pooped out, or one where I probably threw in some leavings and strainings from wine or something that I was making, and it grew this bush. And of course, this volunteer is going to be my best bush. This probably is one of the native varieties where, like I said, these are all different cultivars over here. I've got some Bob Gordon, some Ranch, York, like I said, Good Barn, Scotia, Berry Hill, Coomer, kind of trying to see what does best, Adams, Johns, but this one does the best, and that's probably because it is the native, local, you know, from the wild species. So awesome bush there. And then over here, we've got our sheds, wood pile. But what I'd like to show you over here is actually where we process. I know we have a lot of requests for processing, and you know, we've got some normal life going on here with some junk and some weeds and some things. But this is actually where we process. You can see right back there, those are the little rabbit gambrels. I bought these ones off Etsy. Obviously the tractor comes out of here. We've got some shade to work with. We set up a table in there. We've got water there. We take out the gator, put a nice ice cooler of water in the back, and then we have at it. We've got, you know, we've got 3 there. Last time we processed, we did the 17 in probably about an hour and a half or less. I had, you know, 3 of the guys cutting, and you can see our proximity to the rabbit room. So the rabbit barn's there, short walk down to here. And what we did is I used, I guess this is the one people refer to as cervical dislocation, stick over the back of the neck, pull up on the back legs, dispatch the animals, brought them down to them, and everybody kept going, and that worked really slick. One of the things that we really love about rabbits, and one of the reasons we wish we had done them years ago, was that the processing is so simple, so easy. We've done thousands of meat birds, and that is a process. And I'll tell you that it takes more time to set up and warm up the water than it does to harvest a batch of 20 rabbits. So, you know, that's one of the things that we really like about the meat rabbit. So down here's the garden area. It's my greenhouse that's been converted. It's had many different uses, and last year my daughter got married, so when she got married we had cleaned it out and set up tables and had it as kind of a little beer garden in there, and then after, it was such a nice space that we kept it as kind of a my space. I had a friend that did some yoga here for us over the winter. Right now we've got it set up as a bit of a private gym and a lounge space. In the cooler months, this was a great way to get some vitamin D when it was too cold to get out and bare your skin. So down here, we're coming along the garden areas, the orchard, and here we can get a good look at where I've been dumping the rabbit manure recently. So these are some of the original lines. I've got some pruning back to do, but you can see how you know, the elderberry is coming right up. Like I said, that is from the roots. So a lot of times when you've got elderberries that look dead, they're not really dead. It's just, this is dead because this needed to be pruned back in the winter. I'm gonna get back to some pruning on there, but it's still sending runners and shoots. So again, you can see this is where my Kubota was parked, and the manure's going right on here. Especially for the elderberries, I have no problems putting it straight on, having it full strength with like the urine and manure, because it doesn't impact them. You know, we get enough rain here that urine's getting diluted and worked into the soil. The shavings help keep things mulched, builds up the organic matter from year to year, and the manure's there for fertilizer. So, you know, this is it. This is what I do. This is my fertilization program and my mulching program. And I just every week, you know, come in and work down the line. So I've got this mulch to here, and this week when I clean, I'll attack this end of it. We do have honeybees, and we have had honeybees, you know, they really are challenged and are a little bit of a challenge. We really love having them, but they really do have a lot of challenges with mites and diseases. That's not us, that's everybody. Fun fact about this hive is that this is a hive of ours that died out a few years ago, probably about 4. We didn't bring the hive in the winter. We just didn't get to it. Like I said, we're kind of human too. And we had a swarm from who, I don't even know who. We didn't have any bees at the time. I hadn't gotten any ordered. We had a swarm and they moved into the hive. And then they died out over a couple years. And then last week I was coming down to my garden area and I noticed the front of this hive covered with bees. We had a swarm moving in. So pretty awesome. Last time this happened, they lasted a few years on their own with almost no interference from us. You can see we do have it mulched out to try and keep the weeds down because, you know, they're okay with us working around and mowing and stuff. But if we don't have to get that close with weed whackers and noisy engines, and the bees are happier. And we have the electric, which need to take a few branches off of, but because we have a lot of bears in the area. So we have pretty good luck here, knock on wood, that we haven't had too much bear interference. We've never had a hive ripped apart by a bear. We do ratchet strap it in case it gets rolled. We did have one winter where we saw a bear came up to it, but it hit the electric and it backed off and it left. So the electric did the job that it was supposed to do. We also have the dogs that are out here frequently, and I think their scent and their noise helps us to control that too. So probably move down here. This is another stand of elderberries. All the elderberry plantings down here that are a little more neglected because life. And again, got to get to pruning some dead wood out of here, but I've got all the fresh wood, which is really what I want, or fresh sprouts coming up. Those are going to be this year's berries. So just time to get some dead wood out of there that's been there for too long. Over here, a couple of raised beds. I've got some ever-bearing strawberries, my garlic for the year that'll come out in about another month and a half, my herb bed. This was fun too. Usually sage for me does not actually overwinter and live here, and it did. And the funny thing is, I've never had sage go to bloom, so I don't know if it's kind of a biennial. I just never paid much attention to it. But that never died, was beautiful and strong all winter, and now I've got a beautiful blossoming plant here. I've got my little area here that last year was a sunflower house for all the great nieces and nephews. They had lots of fun playing in that in our at the wedding and at the bridal shower and whatnot. This kind of messy kind of native wild planting here. This is some perennial cut garden area. I've got a lot of peonies in here. I've recently moved some, so some of them don't look super duper. I had tulips and daffodils that are gone by now, but we're coming up on the peonies and I'm patiently waiting for them to open up, and we're getting there, slowly getting there. We had the weather turned so cool and the sun kind of disappeared for 2 weeks and everything just kind of sat and spun dormant. Same with over in the back there by the rototiller. Behind that rototiller, I've got asparagus. I've got a planting of asparagus there, and that was the same way. I was harvesting asparagus and then I wasn't because the weather just turned miserable. This is another row of elderberries. It's a little hard to see them in there because I did recently prune back all that dead wood, but you can see that they are in there. They're coming up. They're alive. They're growing. Another thing that was kind of slowed down by the weather. This looks like a little bit of a mess, but it's actually a wildflower planting. It was a mix of perennials and annuals that I got from American Meadows. I like American Meadows. They've got great quality seed, and they also tailor it state to state. So if you go on their website, no matter where you are, you can pick a seed mix that's actually good for where you are. So I've got some of this is perennials that's coming back, and then it also has those annuals that are reseeding. So a little bit of an experiment here, and we'll see how well that does as a kind of self-seeding, reseeding thing. Because I don't know yet how much of this is just going to be weeds. Time will tell. And then we've got our garden area for the year. In past years, especially when the kids were younger and home more, this whole area from there all the way down to where that sunflower house was, past those raised beds, was garden. It was lovely, but it was a lot. So I've kind of cut back now, and I do a combination of growing my own and then also supplementing, because I am in an area where I have some really great local producers, really great farms. So, you know, I've got 13 tomato plants in. I'll do a lot of sauce, and I love dehydrating for sun-dried tomatoes. But then I'll also buy in some bulk boxes in the fall. They get cheap because everybody gets overrun, and, you know, it kind of becomes a balancing act of time and effort. And just where sometimes it's just cheaper to buy than to grow. As long as I can find someone who's growing kind of with my same ethics, I guess. I pretty much grow organically, so that's what I try and stick with. This row is peas, some snap peas. Got in a little late just because of timing, but it's all right. We're still there. Just waiting for them to come up. Oh, looks like maybe down there we're finally getting some sprouting. Way down there. And I've opted to do pea brush this year. So this is kind of an old traditional hack where they used to take like birch branches, the prunings from the orchard. Mine are actually elderberries because I had pruned the elderberries. And they stick it in the ground and the peas climb along them. Works well as long as you don't have too high of a variety. So that's that. Then it's tomatoes, summer squash, zucchini, peppers, spinach, some bok choy, some cauliflower, red cabbage, broccoli, some beans that aren't up yet, some lettuce, both from starts and from seed, radishes. At least you can always rely on the radishes, right? And then beets and carrots in that row that aren't up yet either. And this actually has some cucumbers in it, but it looks like we probably had some of those die back in this miserable weather, so I may need to replant those and reseed. And then I've got my very grassy asparagus area that could use some rabbit mulch, and also some cutting, some berries, some more elderberries, and my giant rhubarb patch. This is my overgrown herb patch. It's actually in better shape than it looks like because a lot of this is herb, mint, savory. There's oregano in there, some chives over there. And this again, I'm going to bring down some of that rabbit manure, mulch it out, clean it up, and kind of redefine some of those areas. And then same thing with the rhubarb up there. You can see it looks awesome, and it was looking a little weak. Threw some rabbit manure and, you know, some of the cleanings from there, which did, again, mulched and fertilized. And this is what I've got. I mean, these things they're huge. These leaves are crazy big. They're at least up to my waist, even taller. I've got a seed head I got to pull off of there. Another seed head I got to pull off of there. But this is it. This is our stalks here. Got my camera the wrong way, but you can see like we're up to my waist here easily and above. So hope that this shows you guys how useful actually just the manure and the shavings, the cleanings, everything you're bringing out of there, how they can be, and how the rabbits kind of wrap back into anything you're doing. If you're growing your own food, growing your own garden, how beneficial they can be. We have addressed in an FAQ in the past, you know, some people had some questions. How do you get that to work without burning your plants? Especially because, you know, I use the shavings. So when I bring down the cleanings, they are a mix of manure, urine, and shavings. But you can see, this is where in the winter, you know, especially in the winter, there was one period when I just I couldn't get to anywhere else because there was snow. So I dumped it on here, it got tilled in, but I have used it in these garden rows, just like you saw in the elderberries. Rabbit manure itself is a cold manure, so it can go straight from the rabbits to your garden. The urine is what's more likely to burn anything. I don't typically find that a problem. The ways around it are to kind of keep it back. This is actually tilled in, but like if you were applying it the way I showed you on those elderberries, keep it back from touching the plant itself, and then it's not too strong for them. But if you are concerned about it, another good solution, two other good solutions, is one, to just dilute it, you know, literally spray the whole thing down with some water before you come spreading it. Or immediately after you spread it, put a sprinkler on the garden, water it in, and then it will dilute the urine so that it's you know, won't burn them. But again, I generally don't have a problem with that. Once in a while I'll have it if I got it too close to a plant, or maybe there was a spot in, you know, that shovelful had too much urine in it, and sometimes it will actually burn a plant or two. It's literally only happened to a couple of zinnias for me. It's not usually too much of a problem. But that is that. That's my little farm tour for the day. Hope it kind of gives you guys some visuals about when I mention some of these things. Hope that it kind of shows you again how the rabbits can impact and benefit other places on your farm, in your home, in your gardens, and other uses for you know, the byproducts of the rabbits. So if there's any questions or comments, have at 'em. I hope that you guys are all enjoying. I hope you're getting good weather. I know a lot of the country has been a lot crazy, but I hope that you are all safe and well, enjoying some lovely weather, getting out, getting even a little bit of gardening, you know, something, just getting out there and enjoying the fresh air and the sunshine. Thanks for being here. Hope you'll come over to meetrabbits.org, the website, and check out more information and resources we have there, and we'll see you next time.